Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I will be providing my review of the book Gods and Dragons by Kevin J. Anderson. This book is the third book in the Wake of the Dragon series. The first book was the book Spine of the Dragon, released in 2019, and the second book is called Venge War, which was released in 2021. And this third book, Gods and Dragons, released in 2022, just a few days ago as I'm recording this, and I got the chance to read it. I read it very fast, and it was a delight to read, and I will provide my review here. I should begin with talking about my overall thoughts on this series, as I haven't really had that much opportunity to talk about this trilogy on my channel yet, because I read the first two books before I started the channel, and so I haven't really made any videos yet. This is an epic, big trilogy that I would say is Game of Thrones light. And what I mean by that is this book trilogy has all of the type of world building that a book series like Game of Thrones has. It has a rich history, a rich cultural lore, but it isn't quite as unnecessarily deep as Game of Thrones. In a similar way, there are similar magical beings in this book. There are the Wraiths, which are kind of like humans, but also a little bit of the White Walker element to them from Game of Thrones. And there's also this element of political intrigue in that there are the different kingdoms that are constantly fighting against each other. There are foreign kingdoms who are coming in, who are affecting the politics, and then there's this overall threat that everyone is facing that nobody really knows about. And, of course, as you can assume from the title of the books and of the series, there are dragons in this series. And so it's kind of like Game of Thrones. It does not have any of the bad language that Game of Thrones had. It does not have any swear words. This book series also does not have the rampant sexuality that the Game of Thrones books and TV series did. I will say that the first book does have a little bit in there of sexual elements, but it's virtually non-existent in books 2 and here in book 3. And I just love reading this series. And I don't know why, but it is really not known on BookTube, on Goodreads, on Amazon. People don't know about this trilogy, and it hasn't sold that many copies, which is a crying shame because this is a fantastic trilogy, and specifically this book is a fantastic book. This is a thrilling conclusion, but at the same time is a little bit frustrating in a few ways. The first 150 pages of this book are really slow. They feel like they're essentially recapping a lot of the events of the last two books. And I was really disappointed because most of Kevin's novels are really fast-paced and they go along. And this one has, despite only being just about 500 pages, it has 115 chapters. So the chapters are going by. Things are happening real quick. But the problem is that he spends so many of those chapters basically with the characters thinking about what's just happened in real time, as opposed to just moving along the story. Now, if you have a big series such as The Wheel of Time or The Cosmere, this is more understandable, this kind of recapping, because there's such a long period of time between books, and there's such huge books and such a large amount of books that sometimes people reading don't remember all the salient details. This trilogy is so tightly knit, though, that you don't need that kind of exposition in there. And as a result, the first 150 pages of this book was admittedly pretty slow. However, around that 150-page mark, this book takes a sharp turn, and the rest of the book, but particularly the last portion, is just an epic action-adventure thrill ride. Kevin Anderson cranks up the action to an 11, and is able to mesh all of the plot threads all together in just one big epic way that shows true mastery of plotting. Brandon Sanderson has once said that Kevin Brandon Sanderson said that Kevin Anderson, say that 3 times fast, that he's one of the best plotters in the business. And I totally agree with that, because Kevin is able to plan everything out. And this is a firm conclusion. This is going to be the last book in this trilogy. It's the last book of this series. And it is a true finale. You're getting the wrap-up that we most likely will not get in series like Name of the Wind or series like Game of Thrones. And so I was very satisfied with the ending of this series. My biggest frustration with this series was in the promise of it being called The Wake of the Dragon, and the first book being called Spine of the Dragon, and the third book being called Gods and Dragons. I thought the dragons would be all over this trilogy, and they were virtually non-existent in the first 2 books. But there's a reason for that. He was laying the groundwork for this book, and as the cover image would imply, yes, the dragons finally show up in this book, and they bring the mayhem. They truly provide an action centerpiece that really rivals a storyline, kind of like something like the How to Train Your Dragon series, which has one of my favorite kids series, specifically because the music by John Powell is so amazing. And there's some points in this book where I'm like, that would have fit really well here, the music of John Powell. And even though this is very much an adult series, that music fits with the action and high adventure. This book was written before Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings came out, and the conclusion of this book, the big action climax, has a lot of similarities to Shang-Chi, to the point that I almost wonder if this was changed a little bit with the writing of Shang-Chi, with the results of how popular Shang-Chi was. But at the same time, this book was turned in so much earlier that I can't imagine that they would change it that much so close to production time. So I don't know, but this, if you read the book, you'll know what I mean with its similarities to Shang-Chi. The denouement actually has some similarities, I thought, to the TV series Star Wars Rebels. One of the characters does something and becomes something that kind of happens in Star Wars Rebels towards the end in their final season. And so I liked seeing how the types of plots that Kevin is taking are things that other storytellers naturally do, but they just fit really well in here. If I'm going to have a few more nitpicks, I felt that there are 2 continents. You have the Commonwealth, which represents 3 countries on one continent, and then you have Ishara, which is the other continent. The Commonwealth is where all the action is. It's where all the important storyline is taking place. And Ishara was incredibly important in the first 2 books, but isn't important in this book, and doesn't have the significance that it does in the first 2 books, but it has the page time, and as a result, the Isharan plotline here feels contrived, it feels unnecessary, and it feels like he was just using it over the scenes over and over to fill time so that this book would be the same length as the last 2 books. And I don't think that was necessary. I think you could have cut out 50 to 70 pages of the Isharan plotline and focused it more on the Commonwealth plotline and really built up some of the characters better in this book. I think that there were certain things that were missed that could have happened with some of the character development, and I've heard other people say this, and I think I agree. Character development is not necessarily Kevin's strong point as a writer. There are some great character moments, but I think that if he spent a little less time on the plot and a little bit more time on the character development, it would serve him better, both in the quality of his work, but also I think in sales. I think that people would enjoy the books and they would spread the word out more, although he's doing just fine sales-wise. I think with how many books he writes per year, he's probably not hurting at all. So overall, I highly enjoy this book. I think it is a fantastically written book. I think that it has the weakest opening, but the biggest and best ending of the trilogy. And it does deliver on all the promises that it made at the beginning of the trilogy, which is very rare in fantasy books. Quite often we are left wanting, and this book does not leave the reader wanting. I feel that the weakest overall book was the first book because he did include more of the sexuality elements in it, and also I think that it had a lot of heavy lifting to do with creating the world, which was fun and unique at the time, but feels like he could have spread it out more. And I think the best book in the trilogy is still Venge War, which I just thought was perfectly paced and was such a breath of fresh air for me when I was reading it. And I think this book is in the middle. It's still an excellent, excellent book. Highly worth the read, and I suggest you read the whole trilogy. But it's not quite the best of the series overall. But I highly enjoyed it, and if you've read this series, let me know what you thought. Let me know what you thought of the ending, which I really liked. Let me know if you're interested in this series, what your hesitations are, or anything else like that. And let me know why you think Kevin isn't more widely read into the fantasy genre. Leave a comment down below. Please subscribe to the channel and like this video. And until next time, my name is Jonathan, and thank you for watching.